I hate to start a video like this, but if you're still on the fence on whether or not you want to spend the $20 or more on a Founders Pack to get early access to Wayfinder, just save your money. It's currently day 6 after launch and the game still has multiple hour-long queues, which is insane to me because this game is marketed as a quote-unquote MMO. Yeah, right. Queues for 18,000 players? It had queues when it had 10,000 players. I'm not sure what the issue is, but this is honestly unacceptable. I have 16 hours of gameplay logged in on Steam, but honestly, out of the 16 hours, I probably have 5 hours of actual gameplay. The rest is just me sitting in queue. And guess what? If you spent 2 hours waiting in queue, you can't refund the game anymore. So yeah, I think people have every right to be upset about the launch. And of course you have your mega bootlickers on the Steam forums being completely disingenuous about the whole launch. Duh, haven't you played an MMO at launch before? This is normal. Didn't you play New World at launch? Didn't you see how Lost Ark launched? Why don't you just read a book while you wait 40 minutes for queue? Duh. 40 minutes, huh? Yeah, that's a lie. And comparing it to New World or Lost Ark at launch is completely disingenuous. Those games both had 1 million players each at launch. We're talking about a game that has 10,000 players. 1 million is 100 times more players than that. And look, all I'm really saying is, if your game has issues where you can't support 10,000 players for your quote-unquote MMO, maybe don't sell it to people for $130 or whatever. And I know you can pay 20, but I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. The game barely works. It shouldn't even be, you shouldn't be selling it right now. Until you fix it. Fix the game. 10,000 players? Come on, man. Also, I did forget to mention this. This is a free-to-play game. At least in 6 months, it'll be. Right now, you can spend as little as $20 to get early access. But in my opinion, you should wait. So anyway, also another thing that sort of perplexes me about this is made by the same people who made Warframe. Now I get the infrastructure behind both games might be a little different, but don't you think they should have had this figured out already? Also, apparently Digital Extremes co-created Unreal Tournament? It's news to me, what the heck? Also, SolarWinds? I played this game in elementary school on DOS. The more you know, dude. That's crazy. Some kid on the school bus named Kevin gave me a copy of this game on a floppy disk. Shoutouts to you, Kevin. Alright, so we just sat through queue for 5 hours. Now we got some choices to make. You'll probably hear me say this multiple times, but you don't make your character in this game. You actually choose a character like League of Legends. You got Wingrave, Silo, and Nis. Each have their own unique abilities. Now, they each start with a different weapon, but later on, you can actually craft whatever weapons you want to use. Wingrave starts with sword and shield. Silo has a gun, I think. I don't know. Sorry. And Nis starts with daggers. I chose Nis because she kind of reminded me of like a rogue type, so I went with her. So, once you make your choice, it's on to the tutorial. So just a heads up, if you get early access to this game, when you pick your character, you get dumped in this tutorial, which does an okay job of telling you how to play, I guess. Once you pick your character, at the end of the tutorial, it asks if you want to stick with the character you have right now, or if you want to try another one. If you try another one, you're going back to queue. So I suggest you really look at the characters, seeing which one appeals to you most, check out their abilities, and sticking with that one. The only other thing you have to consider is the champion that you pick, you're stuck with until you get materials to unlock another champion. You can purchase a new champion with real money down the line too. I don't think you can do that right now, but I know that is part of the pay model. So this game is in early access. It'll be free to play when it launches in 6 months from now. The game definitely feels like it's in early access. I mean, it's not terribly made, but it definitely doesn't feel like a complete game, that's for sure. So if you want to get into this, then just know it's definitely not a finished product. So what's this game like? It's kind of like Warframes, or like Destiny mixed with League of Legends pay model. Something like that. It's not really an MMO, but it has action combat, and And you don't make a character, you pick a champion, much like you would in League of Legends. You queue up for dungeons, play with 2 other people, and finishing dungeons grants you resources and currency used to make new weapons, unlock new champions, or wayfinders, craft items, you know, stuff like that. The character you pick, like I said before at the beginning, you're stuck with until you unlock more wayfinders. To get more characters, you have to grind for mats, or you can buy them in the cash shop. Each character has 4 abilities, which you can see on the bottom right. They sort of like match up with the layout on a controller. Combat is pretty simple. You can combo your light attacks. You also have sort of this like heavy attack, and usually I'll do like a 1, 2, 3, 4 with the light attacks and finish it with a heavy attack. You also have a double jump, and you have a dash button to evade attacks and stuff like that. Your character also, like I mentioned before, has abilities. I've only played Nis, so I can only speak about her abilities, but one of her abilities is you do a dash in a line dealing damage, and after a short delay, Gloom Clone will dash from your initial position to you, dealing damage to the enemy as well. And you can use this to like get out of an AoE attack or something like that. Her other ability is Umbral Aura, which causes her next 3 dodges to pierce a nearby enemy with a shadow. Vengeful Shade, briefly become immune to attacks and damage enemies in front of Nis, like not an AoE, but maybe like almost like a cleave or something. And then she also has an ability I haven't even gotten to use yet, I think, called Gloom Shroud, which for the next few seconds Shadow Step can be used at no cost. And even the weapons in the game have their own abilities. Currently the weapon I have, its ability, after you get the stacks needed to activate it, it forms multiple magical daggers that float around the player and fire towards enemies as attacks when enemies come within range. Now the combat can be fun, but it seems overly simple. It's like playing a beat 'em up or something, but you got 4 abilities and some passives on top. I could see this getting really boring in the long run, especially if you're just grinding dungeons over and over again. But we'll see. One thing that kind of bugs me is I wish you could rearrange the HUD or the UI to make it look like the buttons you're pressing on keyboard. It probably sounded really weird, but what I mean is the layout looks like the face of a controller. When you're playing on keyboard and mouse, I wish it just looked like the buttons you were pressing. Like, for example, I play ESDF, so I would probably put the abilities on Q, W, R, and T or something like that. So instead of having a diamond shaped here, I wish I could have something that represented the layout or the binds I was pressing. Like, why not let me change the UI to resemble that? Like in a row, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, okay, it'd probably be way easier to explain it that way. Like, if I was playing on keyboard and mouse, and my abilities were on 1, 2, 3, and 4, I wish I could just have the UI represent 1, 2, 3, 4 in a single row, instead of in a diamond. I do this in WoW all the time. My UI resembles my inputs. I do a 5x3 row for my keyboard inputs on the left, and I do a 3x4 row on the right to represent the binds on my MMO mouse. As a whole, the UI reminds me slightly more like maybe like an advanced phone game, which seems to be a worrying trend, at least for me. So anyway, currently the plan is to do seasons, and each new season will introduce new characters, or wayfinders. There is a main story quest, but you'll be grinding out these dungeons to get mats to craft what are essentially keys to unlock new dungeons and bosses. You can also craft these modifiers called imbuement for the dungeon to increase the difficulty or trigger different events in the dungeons. And here are some of the mutators for the imbuements. There's one called Solar, and this is the description. I'm just going to read these off. Under sweltering heat, enemy attacks cause you to burn. Beware of the heat wave that comes and goes. It will strengthen your foes. There's Flora, which is a toxic mutator. And here's a description. Home to toxic mushrooms that ooze pools of slime. Break them to clear the path. Venomous foes will cause damage over time when they attack. And there's a greed one, which spawns gold piles in the dungeons. Piles of gold may be found within, but beware. The more gold you grab, the more damage you take from your foes, etc. And there's 2 more, but you get the idea. And you can also combine these mutators when you're in, like, queuing up the dungeon, which result in different effects. I'm not going to read them all off, but you get the idea. Apparently this is a good source on unlocking new champions, but don't quote me on that because I haven't unlocked any other Wayfinders. So let's talk about quests, I guess. Definitely go in the menu and go to the quest menu. I kind of ignored these for a couple hours when I probably shouldn't have. If you haven't, definitely hit select or whatever you need to do to go in the menu and look at your quests. You can track 3 of them, and you should probably do them. Some quests will have you doing specific things inside certain dungeons, or like they'll want you to use a modifier, or even going in the open world to fetch things. You'll be spending most of your time queuing dungeons though. Open world doesn't feel fully realized. It seems more like a afterthought. Like, there is significantly less things to do in the quote-unquote open world in this game compared to something like even Diablo 4. The size is also significantly way smaller than something like Diablo 4. I think the open world is probably a cool idea or distraction from just grinding dungeons the whole time, but I think you need more of it. More things to do in it, and probably make some more zones, or whatever you want to call them, for the open world. There aren't that many. I've only been in 2. I think there's only 3 currently, and they're not that big. Don't get me wrong, it looks and feels like how you'd imagine an open area or open world would. There are some points of interest and quests for you to do, and enemies sprinkled about, and opportunities to get loot, and even like some world quests / bosses, or like duties or dynamic events like in, like Guild Wars 2 or Final Fantasy 14. You're running out there, and then like some little boss fight happens, and a bunch of people come out of the woodwork, and you all fight it together. That sort of stuff. I've seen that. But for the most part, progression, you'll be grinding out instance dungeons. And my favorite thing about the dungeons, they have these puzzle chests, and I love just watching people struggling to figure out basic puzzles. There's some real galaxy brains out there, I gotta say. Oh, there's a chest. Oh, look at the zoomer try to solve the puzzle. Well, it's like, how I use can opener, I don't know, just a button. Oh, he did it. Holy shit. Bro, what are you doing? Look at this gene. Look at the fucking gears turning in this guy's head. Oh my god, you guys. Stop. No one do anything. Oh my god. Oh my fucking... This is unreal, dude. Stop, dude. Don't touch anything. Jesus Christ. Alright. Watch these guys try to solve the puzzle, Baron. Watch them. Is this how I use can opener? How I solve... How do I solve... I don't know what how do I pick... How I play game? Bro, how long do you think it'll take him to figure this out? Oh, he did it! In the main town, there are various NPCs. They'll give you quests, and there's also some that'll give you a place to craft different items, gear, weapons, consumables, etc. As far as gear or upgrading your character, there are a few ways to do that besides your weapons and accessories that you can craft and equip. Speaking of upgrading your character, there are a few ways to increase your power in this game that you can find in this menu here. So make sure you're paying attention to this menu. You have loadout, which is like your gear, echoes, abilities, affinity, and mastery. Echoes, which are kind of like gems in Diablo, will increase your stats in various ways. They vary in rarity, stats given, and abilities too. I think abilities. I think I saw that somewhere. I don't know, don't quote me on that one. Abilities is a little more self-explanatory. As you level, you can power up your 4 main abilities. You can essentially just upgrade your abilities here. Affinities, which I had a harder time putting in my own words, so I'm just going to read this right off of Affects Your Life for you. Affinities in Wayfinder are a mechanic tied to character progression. Characters in Wayfinder can invest into each one of these 3 affinities in order to increase the effectiveness of their equipped gear, as well as unlocked affinity perks which grant passive effects that improve or modify their abilities, allowing for different approaches to combat and creating builds. And mastery, I'll read this little description too. You can upgrade your weapon mastery by navigating to the mastery section in the character screen. Once there, you can select the mastery you want to upgrade. Upon hitting certain milestones with your upgrades, you will be able to activate a passive that will enhance your weapon mastery. This can also help determine how you want to build out your Wayfinder. So for me, it's the daggers. You can activate the mastery, like for example dual blade finishers that consume flourish points, which to be honest, I don't even know what that is. Actually, that's the stacks. Probably. That makes sense. Consume flourish points spawn an innervation orb, I don't know if I said that right, when hitting an enemy. Or this mastery, riposte. Riposte? I don't know how to read, dude. Enemies take 10% more damage for 6 seconds after being hit by a successful parry attack. Oh yeah. Also, I forgot to mention this, like, sword and shield, they can block with the shield, and then with daggers, you have a parry move. We're on controller, because I started playing controller like midway through my playthrough, because it just felt, I don't know, felt more appropriate. It was on L2. It's a parry, basically. And Arcane Dance. Shadow hits from Blade Dance deal additional ability damage equal to 20% of ability power. Sorry, this section was a little all over the place. I'm not the best at explaining in-depth mechanics, so, I don't know, sorry. Currently, there are a few different weapon types that each character can use, including sword and shield, two-handed, daggers, and ranged, which I guess is like a gun. They also have their own skills, too. I've only been able to use the daggers so far, so I can't really talk about them too much. Graphically, I think the game looks fine. It's not blowing me away, but it's not insulting me or anything. It sort of resembles Fortnite, which, again, I don't really have an issue with. Maybe it's sort of like Fortnite meets WoW or something. I mean, that sounds kind of cringy, but I don't know what else to compare it to. I do appreciate the stylized look, though. I think they could have gone a much worse route. Looks fine to me. I don't know. Typically, I'm not a big fan of the oversimplification of MMO-esque games, i.e. the dungeon/raid queuing simulator that is Final Fantasy XIV. But I think this game has its place. I don't hate it. I think it's fun once you get a feel for what it is. I just hate that modern online dungeon crawlers, and I guess games in general, are resembling phone games more and more every day. Not that I think this game should follow a more sandboxy type of playstyle, but I feel like these types of games get more theme parky every day. But again, I like this game for what it is. I think the style it's going for suits it fine. As far as the pay model goes, I couldn't really find anything too incriminating as far as pay to win goes. It has casino chips, which, you know, instead of buying the thing you want for the exact amount, you have to buy their currency and, you know, hope they don't abuse that. Prices for champions are roughly $15 to $19. I'm getting this info directly from someone else's YouTube video, because the queues are insane, and I didn't feel like queuing for 5 hours to get that information. I got a lot of information this way, if I'm being perfectly honest. I couldn't play the game a whole lot because of the login issues. I think I have roughly 4 or 5 hours of my own gameplay. So I had to Google and look things up a lot, so sorry if some of this seems plagiarized. I did find this little excerpt on the pay model on mmorpg.com on this interview they did with the developers. It's from back in March, but hopefully it's still relevant. Using a tested monetization model, we then moved on to the idea of monetization. We know that Wayfinder is going to be a free-to-play game, and it takes its monetization philosophy from their publisher Digital Extremes, which has seen a great success with Warframe. The team is set that players will be able to purchase characters as long as they do not already own them. And they would also be able to purchase cosmetics as well. There will be an awakening system for endgame where crafting multiples of the same character will incrementally make their character stronger. The cash shop will sell characters, but they are only available if you don't already own them. So you won't be able to purchase a character to instantly awaken them, but you can purchase a character before you can craft it for the first time to awaken the character that way. So that was kind of confusing, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't seem like there's any egregious pay to win. More in line with League of Legends. You can buy the characters or you can earn them. You can buy cosmetics. Didn't really see any pay to win stuff, but I'm not going to say that's going to be, that's 100% the case or anything. That stuff can always just pop up, you know? And as harsh as I was being at the beginning of the video, at least the developers seem to be communicating, at least on Discord. I'm not in there, but people have been reposting what they're saying on the Steam forums. At least they're communicating that they're trying to fix it. And this is what they had to say. We are still awaiting a final build of the software upgrade, which will allow up to more efficiently scale our database. While we are awaiting the finalization of this long-term solution, our teams have been deploying multiple smaller fixes all day to increase individual player stability, as well as various entitlement bugs and fixes to improve queue speed. We are also in the process of working on the disconnect grace timer that will allow you to reconnect when disconnected. We are also actively investigating solutions to the HTTP error at the end of the queue, getting stuck at 99% of a loading screen, and issues with rune silver, missing FP items, insufficient funds bug. Our number one priority right now is to get players into the game. As you're aware, having followed this channel over the last 2 days, the solutions we had did not work, and so it's taken us longer than anticipated to implement these and to make sure that they're done right, as now thousands and thousands of players' data is at stake. Once we have more to share, we will. So that was kind of hard to read, but so it seems like they're trying to fix it. I still stand by what I said though. Right now, it's not worth paying the $20 for early access. I think the game's interesting and I'll keep my eye on it. But right now, it's simply not worth your time. Keep my fingers crossed and hopefully it gets fixed within a reasonable amount of time, but we'll see. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, maybe give it a like, maybe give me a sub, maybe go to my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Jackafur, and maybe comment down below. What do you think? Are these queue times ridiculous? Am I overreacting? Did I just read a book for 40 minutes until the queue's over? Which is a fucking lie, by the way. It's more like 4 hours. Let me know in the comments below. And again, thank you for watching and have a nice day.